Last video, I broke down the idea for this project. Pretty much a moto compo, but electric. And in this video, I'll be making the rear propulsion for it. The current plan is to have the wheel, motor, and ammo box all in one big line like this. And that way I can just use one giant bar to connect it, like that. And it should be pretty easy to set up, so that's why we're gonna do that. So, let's go to Harbor Freight for some parts, because I don't actually have this wheel yet.
Look at all those wheels.
With my wheels acquired, I went home and printed an adapter that would allow me to use a sprocket, which is like a gear but for chains, on the wheel, which would allow me to use one of our motors, which already has a sprocket on it, in order to power the wheel. As they printed, I went to my local hardware store to get some nuts and bolts for mounting hardware. Once I returned home, my parts were finished printing.
So here's the idea. We're gonna have this sit like this on the edge of the wheel, and then this guy is gonna sandwich it because the gear is kind of held on it by friction right now. So we're gonna take this wood screw, it's gonna go through there, and then that is gonna go through this. It's got holes there, so it's just gonna doof, and then blammo.
I'd also like to take some time right now to appreciate wood screws. They actually came in extremely useful in this project. I had originally intended to do it with nuts and bolts like I usually do, but it would have been cancerous to try and attempt that. So I'd like to thank Big Wood Screw for inventing wood screws. They proved extremely useful here in the plastic.
Not going anywhere. Immaculate.
However, on the wheel front, I discovered something strange as I was taking off the bolts.
Okay, so I've discovered something mildly terrifying, and that is that as I'm undoing these bolts, I actually think this wheel might not be one piece because it started making these spring noises, and you can kind of see that the bearing is out of place now. So I'm gonna have to do this like piece by piece, I guess. I don't even know how that would work. So we're gonna have to rethink this a little bit.
We didn't have to do that at all, because it turns out you can just do this.
Turns out once the tire doesn't have air, it doesn't want to explode anymore.
So I'm gonna throw this on here now and bolt it all back together.
So once I found some longer bolts to replace the old ones that were really short, it is actually quite easy to assemble the whole thing.
Nice.
However, as I celebrated out the gain of my new wheel, I laid it out to demo, and, well,
That is way too long. I'm gonna have to redesign this rear. Shit.
we have a problem. The original design for the rear end looked a little something like this. Ammo can here, motor, wheel, chain. The chain would connect these two sprockets, and we'd be all fine and dandy. It turns out, that's really long, and is a big problem, because I need this to be as small as possible to fit in the back of the Ford Focus. So, we're going to revise this idea, and the new plan is going to look something like this. We're going to have the ammo box here, we're going to have the wheel here, and we're going to have the motor up here. And the way we're going to mount this is we're going to take a piece of metal, weld that like that, and then we're going to connect this like that. And that should hopefully fix the space requirement, since they're now on top of each other, reducing that, making it shorter. And so that's the new plan, and we're going to go through with it, and we'll see how it goes. Current main plan, take two bars, weld, put some holes in them.
Alright, let's see what we got here. 3/16, 1/4, 5/16, 3/8, 1/2. Oh no.
Okay, so it turns out we don't actually have any 5/8 bits, but what I do have is this steel pipe and an angle grinder. So the new plan is to just kind of and go from there. Having completed my basic new idea mentally, I got to work.
Abracadabra! Huzzah! Hey, look at that. It's simply too easy. Thank you, editor.
All that needs to happen now is this needs to attach to this.
So, funny story, you see me doing some very nice paint removal here, but I actually totally forgot that the inside of the box was also painted, so there's now a smoking crater of burnt paint where I welded on the inside. Not only that,
but I also recorded myself kind of setting up the alignment for the bars, and it was recorded in time lapse. So bruh, god damn, we ran out of welding wire.
Huzzah!
So, we have now finished this section right here. However, we still have to work on this. And it's a little more important this time that we actually align it properly. Because we're gonna have a chain connecting the motor and the wheel, and if that chain is bent slightly like this, it will wanna hop off the sprockets on both sides, which will cause the thing to be an unreliable mess. So, we're gonna try and avoid that, and we're gonna weld these two up right now.
You are to be sacrificed. Perfect, look at that. Now we just gotta weld these to the frame. It ain't my finest work, but it'll do. Like that. Oh, I'm no chain alignment master, but that's kind of terrible. That's kind of awful and atrocious. Fortunately, there's a fix for these kind of problems.
It's winning.
You got it, look at that. I mean, it's not perfect, of course, but that's pretty solid. That's a lot better. That's doable, and that's what we're gonna run with.
Now all that's left to do is to use the chain tool to shorten this hunk of junk and give it a test ride. Well, test spin. Doesn't have the front wheel, can't drive. It's looking pretty cool, right? Like, that's solid right there. However, as cool as it looks, that's really bad.
So, we're gonna cut off that little piece where the derailleur sits, and it's gonna go like roughly here-ish. And then I should just be able to, look at that.
We have a problem. As much as this looks awesome, it doesn't function awesome. And right now that's because while the chain is tensioned, this derailleur is kind of forward. So it's derailing on the bottom all the time. But I have a solution. And it's a really, like, not elegant one. It's very brute force. But we're just gonna print a larger disc down there, right here. And that way it can't slip off because the disc will stop it. And that's the idea. It was a stupid idea, and this is roughly how it went. Alright, so this system right now, despite the larger thing, is still derailing like a lot. Thinking maybe if I just zip tie it, it'll get better. Frankly, I'm thinking the new disc is almost worse. It doesn't sound great, but it is working. I think I have all the electronics properly down here. Those will be in a future video. Ooh, screen is on. Come on. 3, 2, 1.
Ooh, that's not a good sound.
No, it's not. And all the following tests sounded a little something like. Okay, so it's running backwards. No. No, why? Woo! Suffice it to say, things were not looking promising. However, in the 11th hour, 2, 1. Oh my god, that is terrifying. Holy. But, despite its terror-inducing nature, I would actually call that a pretty big success. It runs off the motor, it doesn't dechain, and the chain stays relatively tensioned. So, I'm going to call that mission success for this video. Next video, we'll be focusing on the steering and also the electronics of how to make this thing run. And then it should be good to give a test drive.